listener production.
From the briefing team,
This is The Beefing. Hey, it's Helen Smith here. Welcome to The Beefing. Today's beef is on Rupert versus James Murdoch. Let's get into it. The real-life succession battle over the Murdoch media empire worth billions resulted in one of the biggest family feuds playing out in court, and it went on to destroy the relationship between Rupert Murdoch and his son, James. To give you a bit of background, Rupert Murdoch once sat at the head of News Corp and Fox Corporations, which runs the likes of Fox News and the New York Post in America, and Sky News, News.com, the Daily Telegraph, Herald Sun, and the Australian here. And the family's power over the media here in Australia has been heavily criticised, as we have one of the most concentrated media environments in the Western world, with News Corp making up nearly 60% of the metropolitan and national print media market by readership. And even two former prime ministers have made calls for a royal commission into Murdoch's impact on Australia's national democracy, with his papers being accused of profiting off an angertainment ecosystem, with Kevin Rudd being a vocal critic of the Murdoch empire.
It is important we bring scrutiny to bear on the Murdoch enterprise. People in politics are frightened to take on Murdoch directly. The Murdoch media, Murdoch Senior, Murdoch Junior, Murdoch period. And it is not an irrational fear.
But in February this year, James Murdoch gave a rare interview published in The Atlantic, sharing his side of the story, calling his father a misogynist and describing Fox News as a menace to the US democracy, which we'll unpack a little bit later. But firstly, who are the key players and how did the legal battle lead to James sharing the family secrets? Rupert Murdoch was known as the boy publisher after inheriting a newspaper at 22 years old in Adelaide from his father. And that was the start of his plan to take on not just the Australian media landscape, but the international media. And now the 94-year-old is known as being one of the most successful businessmen in the world and one of the most influential and controversial media tycoons, with his papers often being accused of distorting the news to ensure his political allies win elections. But as of November 2023, he stepped down as chairman of Fox and News Corp, leaving his son Lachlan Murdoch as the chairman, who is also a big part of this feud and has beef with James as well. Speaking of James Murdoch, he is the youngest son of Rupert and was the favourite to be the heir of News Corp, while Lachlan was out of the good books at one point. But James was never Rupert's top pick. He's more moderate and didn't share the same views as his father. And in 2011, James' reputation was torn apart, further fracturing his relationship with his father after a hacking scandal involving the family's newspapers in London, which James took the fall for. And as a result, James started to further distance himself from Rupert and his brother, with media experts claiming that James was embarrassed by Fox News.
And I'm out of it, so I'm not involved and haven't been for a little while.
Do you watch Fox News?
No.
Do you think there's ever a future in which you would go back to Fox?
I don't think so. I think they're off doing their own thing there. My brother and my father run that, and that's over there, and I'm not worried about it.
And you don't communicate with them about it?
About business, no.
So his relationship with his father was pretty much over. And in his recent interview with The Atlantic and American journalist McKay Coppins, James shares his discomfort with News Corp and Fox News' support of Brexit and Donald Trump, with James having to come to terms with seeing Fox News as a blight on his family's name and a menace to America's democracy, and that drastic changes were needed to save the companies from the consequences of his father's reckless mismanagement. And during Australia's 2019-2020 bushfires, the feud started to really come to the forefront, with James and his wife sharing their frustration of News Corp and Fox News' coverage of the fires. Their spokesperson saying they are particularly disappointed with the ongoing denial among the news outlets in Australia, given the obvious evidence to the contrary, which many claimed they were talking about climate change here. Then later in 2020, James resigned from the News Corp board, but it was the legal battle that truly cemented the feud between Rupert and James, with the key players involving Rupert's 4 eldest children, with claims that Rupert set up this succession battle in order to create a fight between them.
You would like to have a member of the family succeed you, right?
Yeah,
You've said
I think that's a natural
either sons or daughters. You'd like to have.
They've got to prove themselves too.
So far, they're showing great promise. And Lachlan here on my left is supervising something like 60% of last year's huge operating profit. So they're starting well. Let's see.
The legal battle all started after James and his older sisters, Elizabeth and Prudence, who were all known to be more politically moderate, got wind of their father's plan to tear up the supposedly never-to-be-broken family trust, changing it to make all the power go to his eldest son, Lachlan, giving him control over Fox and News Corp. And so, a years-long succession battle played out, creating a media frenzy. And according to the Atlantic interview, James said in March 2024, he was prodded aggressively by his father's lawyers over the legal challenge, being asked, "Have you ever done anything successful on your own?" while Rupert was on his phone. And then James went on to say that his father was texting the lawyers questions to ask. How effing twisted is that? The lawyers also referred to James and his sisters as white, privileged, multi-billionaire trust babies. Then, reportedly, after the trial had finished, James said at Thanksgiving in 2024, he and his sisters wrote a letter to their father saying they missed and loved him, pleading to put an end to this destructive judicial part so that we can have a chance to heal as a collaborative and loving family. And in response, according to the Atlantic interview, Rupert said that they should contact his lawyers if they wanted to talk to him. Ouch. But the legal battle all came to an end in September 2025, with Lachlan ending up on top and set to control the news group. Under the new agreement, Prudence, Elizabeth and James would cease being beneficiaries of any trust with shares in Fox or News Corp, but they will also be named as beneficiaries of a new trust, which will receive cash from the sale of about 14.2 million shares of News Corp and 16.9 million shares of Fox Group. And according to reports, Prudence, James and Elizabeth will receive around 1.6 billion Australian dollars each. But the sales of their shares will also mean that they won't have any influence over the political sway of the family's media empire, which is at the very core of this beef between James and Rupert. And you might be wondering, did James watch the TV show Succession? Well, the interview revealed that he only watched one episode and found it too painful. But other members of the family were obsessed with the show. Certain scenes and storylines seemed uncannily true to life. And how did Rupert respond to James's interview in The Atlantic? Well, a spokesperson for Rupert and Lachlan described his claims in the piece as a litany of falsehoods from someone who no longer works for the company but still benefits from them financially. And that's kind of true, but still. That's where this beef between Rupert and James Murdoch comes to an end for now. However, Rupert is back in the headlines and back in court with Smartmatic's $2.7 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox, who claim Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch authorised a plan for Fox News to embrace Donald Trump's false claims of election fraud in 2020 in a bid to win back viewers angry with the network. So this definitely won't be the last time we hear about a beef between Rupert or a Murdoch, that's for sure. But that's it for today's beefing on Rupert versus James Murdoch. If you like this ep, let us know. And while you're there, if you could subscribe or follow wherever you're listening from, it's a really easy way you can support everything we do here on The Briefing. And you can check us out on YouTube and Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Helen Smith. Catch you next time.